welcome back to my channel. My name's Phoebe. This is Moonshine Stitchery. My last name is Moon. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about all of the stitching that I have been doing the last couple weeks. So I have a new update video for you every 2 weeks. I've been cross stitching since I was about 12 years old. I saw this teenage girl that I thought was so cool. She was probably like 17 or 18. And I was with my mom visiting a friend, and this girl had all this cross stitch framed and up on the wall, and I was like, what's that? Oh, this is cross stitch. Then I was like, let me just fully absorb myself in this, and ever since then I have loved it. Loved it. So what is that, about 30 years? 30 years of enjoying, loving, feeling passionate about stitching and how it brings me peace and calm. So today we are just going to be talking about cross stitch. Sometimes I talk about crochet or needlepoint, but today is just cross stitch. I do have a big finish, well, big for me, because I think it's my first Plumstreet finish. That's like a full, like a big piece, not a little project. But actually I don't think I've done a little piece either. I'll be sad if I'm forgetting one of my Plumstreet babies. WIPS is a finish. But in any case, since the last video, I worked on a few things, but not as many as my usual video, because I was working on getting a finish on Jack's Bash. So that's what we're going to start with today. I'm going to share with you my finish, then I will share with you my works in progress, and I don't have any haul. I do want to share about a few channels that I've been enjoying lately, new to me channels, and then we'll talk plans, and then we'll chat about books at the end. So let's get into it. So here is Jack's Bash. This is from Plumstreet Samplers, and she is all done. And I loved every second of this project, with the exception of one thing, which I will talk about in a minute. But I really I love Plumstreet Samplers. I love how she designs. I love the motifs. I love the feel of all of her projects. I just love it. So the only part I did not love was not this over one. I did enjoy that quite a bit. It was not this big amount of grass. The thing that I didn't like about this project was complete user error. So this is a conversion. I pulled from stash flosses that I wanted to use. I pumped up for me, the interest on some flosses like are represented in this flower and all of this bordering here by using some highly variegated autumnal shades rather than the call for flosses. But for the black, I used Gloriana India ink, I think, and that was not a good idea. I feel like I learned something from every project I do. This project I learned I might just stay away from that specific Gloriana, because I did have other Glorianas in here that didn't cause me that many problems, but it's a heavily used floss, you know, it's up there all in the houses, all the letters, and then a lot of over one with it. And that Gloriana frayed so much, it was kind of a nightmare. So I used it first here, it did fine. But then what happens, I don't know if you can see, this stitching looks less dense than this, like less opaque. And that's because as you stitch with that thing, it loses some of the strands, and it becomes thinner and thinner as you stitch. And then it breaks. So my black floss, I think, like I said, it was India ink, was breaking and fraying constantly. It was a huge nightmare. But I finished it. And the only way that I managed to, this is all still done with it, this, all of it. All of the black you see is done with it, except for this. So I did over one with it up here and discovered that it was a nightmare. And then, so when I came down to here, I was like, there's no way I can do all that over one with this fraying floss. There's no way. So I got out my Vicky Clayton black silk that I had in Lazy Bear Mountain, and I stitched the over one with that. It's a cute little saying. And I just love that it has this gothic couple in here. Well, we have two couples. I mean, she straight up has gray skin. I think he does too. They all do. She's holding this tiny little over one, what looks like a beehive to me. I don't know. But yeah, I love it. So if this looks different to you than a previous finish you may have seen, it's because I pulled my own flosses because it made it more fun for me. So yeah, I'm fully assuming that there's a couple stitches missing somewhere, but from looking over it a couple times after I finished, I didn't see any right off the bat. So this is also stitched on a piece of fabric that I overdyed. I do have this fabric in my shop, Moonshine Mani, which is my nail polish brand. I have a section on that website for my hand-dyed linen. And this piece of fabric is called Landslide. When I dyed it for the website, I took the gentle modeling way down. This I would consider like a medium level of modeling in contrast, and I took it down to low contrast. So if you like the color of this very warm, kind of rusty tan, the whole piece of linen will look like more like what's right here instead of highly modeled. So I do have a few more pieces of this, and I do have some other linen up now on there for you to choose from as well if you would like to. It's all 40 count right now because that's what I love. So this is stitched 1/2 on 40 count, and it's all done. I didn't get it up in time. I didn't get it finished in time to frame and put it up for the season, but it made for a lot of fun seasonal stitching for me in the last couple weeks while I was getting ready for Halloween and all that goodness. So I just keep looking at it, think, I know I've got some stitches missing somewhere, but maybe I'll find it eventually. Maybe I won't. Does it really matter? Probably not. But so anyway, that is my finish. Next, we're going to talk about my 2 strands a day stitching. And I have to admit, the last couple days when I was working on Jack's Bash so steadfastly, I have not stitched on this in a few days. So I skipped a few days. But I have been pulling her skirt down. I want to get the skirt down to see like where the edge of it is. So it's going to keep going down here for a while. This is Garden Prelude from Mirabilia. I'm stitching it on 32 count white gel natural linen, or whatever the call for is, which had I been starting it now, I would have overdyed this linen, or actually probably not this color, but I would have chosen a fun color. But in any case, you know, it is making a nice contrast to the colors of her dress. So this is being stitched 2/2 on the 32 count, and using all of the called for DMCs and specialty flosses. Right now in her dress, in her dress there's basically no specialty flosses. I'm just doing all of these beautiful DMCs in the blue, purples, and the turquoise shades. So really, really loving it. And so what 2 strands a day means, I learned this technique from SarahsStitchySpot. So you pick a project. I picked my oldest WIP, which is this one, and you do 2 strands of floss in it every day so that you're getting progress on it continually, and eventually it will get done. And after this one is done, I will move on to my next oldest WIP, but this still has quite a ways to go, as you can see, and it's such a pleasure to stitch on. I love it so much. I am the type of stitcher where I need a lot of different projects because it helps me not get bored of my stitching, because I've definitely gone through different periods in the last 30 years of stitching where I have just not stitched for like a whole year, which at this point in my life seems very strange to go that long without stitching. But I used to stitch exclusively like dimension gold kits because that's all I knew that there was, and I would get burnt out of that kind of full coverage stitching, which is what Mirabilia feels like to me, because it's 2 strand stitching and places like the whole dress is full coverage, so it's reminiscent of that. So if I can avoid that, then I will just keep having my lovely stitchy bug rather than burning out. So like I said, just a few other projects to share with you this week. I have Fraktur Flowers by Kathy Barrick. It is coming along. This piece I stitch on the 21st of every month because it's a piece that my daughter chose that she really liked. so you can see what her kind of aesthetic is. Not a ton of colors, it's a really clean design that has stark shapes, strong shapes and strong color. And so my older daughter picked this one out. She was born on the 21st of February, so I stitch on this on the 21st of every month. I'm stitching this with some of the called for MPIs and some flosses from Stash if I didn't have the called for. And this is another piece of linen hand dyed by me. It's a 40 count and I'm using one strand over 2 on it. And I'm trying to remember, I think this flower is new. This is what I was working on. So I was only working on it for 1 day, but I was filling in this flower. So, yep, I love this piece. It's so beautiful. And then in this last 2 weeks, I also had the occasion to stitch on the 30th on a project for my other daughter, Joy. She picked out Blackberry House from Plumstreet. I think this must be the other big Plumstreet I'm thinking of, and I definitely don't have a finish on this yet. Because if you only stitch on it 1 day out of the month, you know, you're getting a lot less progress on it than other things. So this is the project that Joy picked for me to pick. This is her aesthetic, much more soft purpley rose colors. This is stitched on a piece of Fabric and Flare. What is this called? Dried Petal. It's so pretty. It's one of those printed fabrics. This is 40 count. And I'm using 1 strand over 2 with all the called for flosses in this one. Usually with Plumstreet, I really like to just use her called for flosses unless she's using a lot of like browns, and then I want to change it up a little bit, but all of the flosses in here are so beautiful. So this time I finished the roof, and none of that roof was in, and then I did all of this over 1. I don't remember what black that is. I think it's black coffee, maybe. I put in that guy, finished up that guy. Then I did this strawberry, this one, whoops, and then pulled this over. Oh, and I guess I put that little thing in there. So just kind of bebopping around, but doing the over 1 horse. I was like in the middle of doing the over 1 on Jack's Bash, so sorry, I guess I could pop back into frame. So I was like, oh, I could knock out that over 1 horse right there, or the weather vane. It's so cute. It's really, really cute. Plumstreet and our over 1. So, yep, we'll see this in another month. This last week I had 2 Stitchy Zooms. So on Mondays I've been stitching on Louisa Barny with Kim, Contented Needle Kim, and Heidi from WIPS and Kits. And oops, there's a needle stuck, that's why it's not laying flat. We are slowly yet surely, because that's how it goes, 1 stitch at a time, making progress on Louisa. We are all stitching in different places on this project, and sorry, this big bed sheet is hard to maneuver sometimes, especially if you've got needles in the way. So you're probably thinking to yourself, gee, that looks the same as the last 5 times you showed this project. Well, that's because this is difficulty level high stitching for me. And so this is one of the projects like my Mirabilia where I go in and literally highlight the pattern. On this one, I have printed out the page and then I highlight as I go because I get so lost. I'm just in the border. This is one of the birds, but I'm just in the border on the top right hand side, and I'm trying to bring it down so that I can get down and do more stuff along like this. But I'm using a conversion, 103 conversion from Needle in a Haystack. Heidi and I are both stitching that way. If you look at Kim's video, you'll see she shows this in her video, and she's using the DMCs, which are stunning. And so we are just having a great time. I'm especially loving whenever I get to stitch in these purples, and the blues are my favorites. I'm not actually much of a pink lover, but there's a lot of pink in this project, but I'm stitching it on this piece of blue because it just looked like French farm life. I just wanted a beautiful blue to the landscape. So that's what I did. It's a very warm blue because a lot in here is very warm. So anyway, that's where I am, and we work on this for an hour each week, about an hour. So it's not getting a massive amount of progress because I haven't been putting any progress in on it aside from stitching with the ladies. But now that my Halloween stitching is done, I am wanting to get back to my samplers, and so we'll see. But yeah, basically I was trying to make sure I got a page complete up here. So I was like really double checking to make sure everything in there goes to like, well, basically right there. And so that's a page like that, and then I was coming down. So that is Louisa Barny from Reflets. I don't remember if I said that, I apologize. 1/2 on 40 count and using 103s. The other stitchy zoom I had this week was with Heidi and Sarah from SarahsStitchySpot, and I pulled out Oh Joyous Day because whenever Sarah does a video and shows this, I'm just dying over the fact that I haven't stitched on it. So I got it out to stitch with the ladies. My flosses are a little jumbled. So like pretty much nearly all of the weeks called for are in here, and then most of the other threads are from my stash. So that's why it'll look a little different to you. I wanted to make it greener. For example, anything that uses Weeks putty, that's kind of more of a brownie green like this. So I pulled it out, and I am using, it's a overdye of mine. I like to overdye floss as well. So yeah, here's what the flosses look like. I wanted it a little more lively for spring. I wanted it more like full bloom spring rather than wintry spring. So like a couple of the flosses that are making a big change, you know, if you've got something that's highly variegated like this. But I still do have Sage from Weeks and Sandcastle in here. So I'm keeping some of the more prim things called for. But like this Leo from Forbidden Fiber Co. Forbidden Fiber Co. makes such awesome flosses, but I don't often have the occasion to use them. So when I can think of a reason to and like see, okay, this floss, I can use that in the flower and it's going to look really cool, and I'll be able to see all that variegation. And there you go. So that's why I do that. This is this piece of 28 count casual linen. It is thick and it takes dye differently than other linen, and I actually really enjoy stitching on this. I dyed this quite a long time ago, and it has soft kind of rosy peach modeling, gentle modeling. And so this time what I did was I took that floss that should be putty and I put in all of these little Smyrna crosses going through the zigzag, and then I came in and I started putting in these letters in here, and that is all I did in an hour. I'm not a fast stitcher, especially when I'm talking with friends. So this is 28 count, and I'm doing this one 2/2. You will very rarely hear me say that. Even on 32 count, I don't like to. But I am on this one. So it's going to be very opaque, full coverage, and that is Oh Joyous Day by Blackbird Design. Here I am again not saying what the designer is, so sorry about that, but I love that one so much. On the 25th of every month, I like to stitch on something Christmassy. Just like on the 13th and the 31st, I will stitch on something Halloween-y, but I was already stitching on Jack's Bash on the 31st, so I didn't have to change it up. So on the 25th, I pulled out my vintage Christmas alphabet by Jan Hicks, and I finished up C for Candle. So she just has, in this, she has a red, gold, and green, and I pulled my own flosses. I'll go ahead and tell you what they are in case you love them, because they are wonderful, and so if you want to use them. We have 358, which is an MPI, so this one's the only one that's not variegated, the green. But you'll notice that the red and yellow are highly variegated. So the yellow is Autumn Gold. I used this for one of my Jeanette Douglas pieces, and it's so good. The bee, I think it was for bee stitches, and I was just anxious to use it again, so I pulled it into this project. So pretty. And then the red is Classic Colorworks Belle Soie Tulip, and also highly variegated. So this is stitched on a piece of 40 count, over dyed by me. I really love this over dye, but long time ago, I used to over dye stuff and not write down the recipe because I was just ridiculous. So I will be trying to replicate this color to make some more of it because I love it. So anyway, my plan, I have all of them, is to stitch all of the vintage Christmas alphabet. So, and I know Sarah's also stitching on this project. And it's just so fun. It's so pretty. And then you stitch on this for like 2 days and then you have a mini finish. And I'm not going to fully finish any of them until they're all the way done. But yeah. So 1 strand over 2, 40 count, Vintage Christmas Alphabet by Jan Hicks Creates. My final WIP is Hannah Sanderson from Dutch Treat Designs. I don't have a ton of progress in this since the last time you saw it because I pulled this out. This was the next thing that I wanted to stitch on after finishing Jack's Bash, but I just barely finished it yesterday. So there's not really much going on here. Just from here down, I'm pulling the border down. So this project has a very substantial amount of verse right here, and I am going to stitch it all because I think that I'm kind of a completionist. I think that I do really enjoy stitching everything in the design. But because I also can get bored kind of quickly doing that verse, I know that I'll eventually really love to have it all, but I don't want to do it all at this, like right now. So I was working on it last time this was out, and so now I want to come down here, and as you can see when I put up the picture, there is so much beautiful floral and motifs that you can't see from looking at what I've done. So I want to pull this down and get into some of those motifs, but it has really, really fun colors. That was not an attempt to toot my own horn. It already has fun colors. I pull my conversions off of the DMC list. So I'm also doing the lighter. There's 2 versions of this project, and I'm doing the one for the lighter fabric. So I have all kinds of stuff in here. I have JU Design, I have Be Stitch Me Silks, I have Gentle Arts, Classic Colorworks, Forbidden Fiber Co. It's everything. There's some of my things that are dyed, there's MPIs. I really have a whole mishmash in here, and it's just, you know, a whole spring rainbow is what we're going to be stitching with. I'm currently working with Dark Pine from JU Design. So, which is a really, really pretty color. I just really love Pea Pod. Classic Colorworks Pea Pod. It's such a rich shade of olivey green. So, there's a bunch of these colors I haven't even used yet in this project. I managed to put Otter Creek in here, guys. I'm always drawn to this color when I go to Stitchy stores. And I don't think I've used it for anything yet. I may have put a stitch in here with it, but it's such a pretty color. Highly variegated, and I pulled it into this project because I was like, it is happening. I also have 3371 in here, so we just have a plain DMC too. So all the things. I have a Threadworks. I am a huge Threadworks fan. So anyway, that's that. We have the Jam Plan from Forbidden Fiber Co. They had a Friends collection. That's the Jam Plan. And I also have Nubbin. Nubbin. If you know, you know. So anyway, this is 40 count. So I'm stitching 2 over 1 on this very pale gray blue. And this is a linen that you can get on my website if you like it. I love stitching on blue. I love it so much. It's my go-to alternate neutral if I don't want to stitch on just tan or gray for a sampler. I feel like a very soft gray blue is an awesome option. So anyway, yes, you can snag this on my website. And I have now 4 linen colors on there. Right after this, I will show you the other colors. This is what I would call medium modeling because the contrast level isn't extreme, but I do have some very gentle or like a level 1 modeling, and then I do have some high contrast modeling on there as well. This piece of linen is called Angel, and I hope that you will see more progress on this in the next video because I'm not done stitching on Hannah Sanderson. I only got like half a day on her, so she needs more work. I've been really missing my samplers. When it is fall, I really want to stitch on fall, especially October. Up till Halloween, I really want to stitch on Halloween because that's the time of the year that I'm the most excited to stitch on Halloween. But in the effort of stitching on a lot of Halloween and fall stuff, I miss my samplers a lot. So yeah. So I'm just gonna quickly show you a few of the other colors. This one is called Halo. So whereas Landslide is a lot more browny tan, Halo is more bone with some very soft gray brown, like level 1 modeling. So a really good sampler piece if you're wanting your neutral to be more bone rather than tan. And then this is an example, this is Footloose. This is an example of high contrast modeling. So I do have the different variations, you know, depending on what you're looking for. So these aren't serged yet, but they would be before they came to you. And they're all fat quarter size. I find that, you know, that's just a really good size to go with because you can usually fit a whole sampler on there, but then you could also just use it for a number of small pieces. So Footloose has this kind of very light ivory kind of egg, not quite eggshell, it's less creamy than eggshell even. And then we've got the high contrast in the gray. So we've got a very soft, almost a light teal undertone in the gray. But if you just want to, for simplicity's sake, it's gray. So that's Footloose. And I do have a few more fat quarters of each of these colors that I showed. And I'll be building up my store as I go along. Basically, I'm finding all the pieces that I've stitched on in the last 3 or 4 years and figuring out which ones are my favorites and then replicating those and figuring out the recipe for them and everything so I can replicate them over and over. So yes. So I do want to mention a few channels that I have been watching lately. I haven't done shout outs in a little bit, and a lot of that is because I have been reading a lot and not watching as much Flosstube, or just watching like my faves and not branching out to new channels a lot recently. But I've been trying to make a point. YouTube's been showing me a lot of new channels, so I've been clicking on them and trying to remember to talk about them. So I just want to mention, I think it's 3 or 4. So Michelle Burt, she is a quilter turned also cross stitcher, and I love all of her projects. I also just really love her personality. She is delightful. So definitely go check her out, especially if you love quilting and cross stitching. So I will link all of these channels down below. Another floss tuber that I have been watching lately, I don't remember if I talked about her before, but Lake Girl Stitches. Ever since her first video, I think she just has 3 now, maybe it's 4, but I just finished watching 3 the other day. And I really also, I enjoy her personality. I enjoy everything she's stitching on. She's just, I really love every time a new video comes out because I know I'm gonna just see a treasure, a treasure trove of little treasures in the video. So I really enjoy her. I think that's Steph. I finally caught back up with Michelle, Penny Daughter's Shares. That's not a new one, but she's been gone for a while. I think she said since March. So, wow. She showed so many things, so many finishes that she's had since March. I just love her. And on top of just enjoying hanging out with her, she had so much to show, and she was like not even sharing all of it. I think she was just sharing the fall seasonal stuff, or the stuff that felt more pertinent to the season or something. So anyway, I know sometimes stuff comes up and people aren't able to post regularly, and that's totally fine. But then I just get so excited when they come back. So I also found a channel called Multiple Lanes Creative Brain, which I just love that. And she, as her thumbnail, the one I watched was number 7, and her thumbnail has a long dog sampler, and she's doing it like in a color gradient, a vertical color gradient. So she's starting like blue and then she's going into greens, and it is going to be incredible. She does stitch on stamped cross stitch along with counted cross stitch. She just has a lot of interest, which totally speaks to my brain, because that's how my brain is too. I'm just kind of like, what am I gonna do right now? So I really enjoyed her. Again, delightful personality, super fun to hang out with. So yes, definitely go check her out. So a lot of My Hero Academia videos in my history, because that is what my daughter Honor loves to watch lately. So she loves to like put quiz videos on and then test me and see if I know stuff. Okay, so Little Loops Stitching. She has a whip parade, and so that's the first one of hers that I watched, is a whip parade. And in the thumbnail, she's holding up a reproduction sampler that she's doing, that she's the designer of. So that is very exciting. She has a lot of full coverage stitching. The first part of her video was all of her full coverage products, but she's recently done something that I do, which is when it's time for whip parade, I go and glean out things that I know that I'm not going to be wanting to stitch on. So she's kind of like refreshed everything that she's super interested in right now, which means that she's very excited about all these things. And again, a personality that I loved spending an hour with. She was so delightful. She's from the UK. To me, that like instantly makes a channel that much more appealing. I just love listening to accents. I love it so much. So anyway, I will link all those channels down below. Go check them out. And then everything else that I watched is all of my very faves. And so you've heard me mention them lots and lots, but those are some new ones. So I did purchase a few pre-order things from Top Notch Stitchery yesterday, but they're not here. So I don't have any haul to share today, but we're going to talk about plans. So I like to stitch things on specific days, as you know. So in the next 2 weeks, we have the 4th, which is tomorrow. I'm filming this on the 3rd, so this probably won't go up till the 4th or the 5th. So I will already have stitched on Artful Offerings, Americana Sailboat, and so you'll definitely see progress on that. On the 7th, I'm gonna stitch on my Seaside Stitches from Jeanette Douglas, which looks like this, and very, very excited to pull that out. These are all things that I stitch on once a month on specific days, because I do like to have like themey stitching that remind me of special times, special days, things like that. On the 10th, I'm going to have a new start. I will be starting Pretty Little Paris, because I finished Pretty Little London last month. So that is very exciting. The 10th is my husband and I's anniversary, 10th of April, 2010. And so I'll be starting that, and then I will continue stitching on that. That's by Satsuma Street. I'll continue stitching on that on the 10th of every month. On the 13th, I will stitch on something Halloweenish. I don't know what. Maybe it'll be the Happy Halloween by Brian Jackson. I meant to stitch on that again before Halloween time was over, and I just didn't get to it because I decided to put all of my Halloween focus into Jack's Bash. So maybe it'll be that one. I don't know. We'll see. I also haven't got my full coverage out in a while, guys, so you might see full coverage. My Pain-Free Crafts spring montage is calling to me. Full coverage just, it hits a different part of your brain than sampler stitching, for example. So, yes, we'll see. So besides that, those are all the specific day stitches. Now I'm going to pick 2 random projects with you. So I use a random number generator. The first project I'm going to choose is one of my 24 Mania starts from 2024 Mania. And so number 13 is going to be The Dutch Steps of Life by GGR. I just love me some GGR. So you'll definitely see progress on those. And I say definitely, but I should probably say hopefully, because in the last video I chose Season of Celebrations to stitch on and didn't actually get to it. because Jack's Bash. So we shall see. Hopefully those two things will be coming out. And then on my Tiny Decisions wheel, I have all my WIPS here, and then I can, sorry about the ring light reflection. Cold Sea Sampler. Ooh, that's gonna be fun. So that looks like this. This is Modern Folk Embroidery, and it is a smaller sampler, monochromatic. So I'm just using, I think, Weeks mascara with the beautiful Be Stitch Me fabric. So yes, which that is actually perfect because I started that for November. It was like monochromatic sampler stitching or something, monochromatic November or something like that. So I started it 2 Novembers ago. I don't have a ton done on it, but now it's basically going to be its 2-year anniversary, so I'll stitch on it. So besides those projects, I want to show you some things that I have been itching to stitch on that I was like not allowing myself to because I wanted to finish up Jack's Bash and like do the Halloween stitching while it was the season. But I'm really excited to get back to these things. And I do have a planned start for November or for Thanksgiving because my friend Jan from Hoop It Up with Jan, I think she's starting it with I Am a Stitch Nerd. They are starting, and God Saw, here is her post so you can see that she's getting it kitted up with the DMCs. Here's the pattern. So this is a Teresa Kogut. Jan and I are both big Teresa Kogut fans. So last year I started with her, that other project. Let me grab it. Okay, it's called Dwelling Place. It's in this big, beautiful booklet. And Jan has finished hers and it's so stunning. So that must be, she was aiming for a finish probably before this, and then she could start another big, beautiful Teresa Kogut. I have quite a few Kogut on the go and I love them so much. Here. And the last Kogut I finished was Folksy Thomas, but look at how beautiful. I think of it as a patriotic piece because it has stars, but it's more just Americana. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. So I'm itching to get back to this. Let's go into my itching to get back to parade. I have to keep an eye on the time because I need to get to choir practice in about 20 minutes. Okay, so this is another Teresa Kogut. This is Remember Me, and all of these things are going to be oh, I love this piece of fabric so much. Another blue. This is done with a totally different mix of things, so it's a very different coloration of blue than is in Angel. But I love this. Like I said, I love blue for samplers because it makes such a great contrast with these Kogut colors. Although like I said, I did change a bunch of the colors. I get tired of the drab brown. You know, they're listed as drab brown, the DMCs, so I have to change it a bit. So this is all I have done on Remember Me. But you saw the whole image, so itching to get back to this one. And I'm just gonna like put these all, I'm just gonna drape them all out over the, I'm just kidding. Because then they would get wrecked. But I'm gonna leave these out so that I remember to grab them and stitch on them. Consider the Lilies has not been stitched on in so long from Heartstring Samplery. So this is such a fun piece. I feel like I would have loved stitching on this when I was 12. All these fun, playful motifs, that's as far as I am. And this one is, these are all 40 count so far. This one is with the Call for Flosses, and there's a lot in there, a lot. This one is Hannah Elliott from Needlework Press. Another really cool piece of linen that apparently I didn't write down the recipe for again, but that's okay. This one's kind of like a very soft buttercream tan, so a very different take on it. That was I think one day of stitching. And this piece is so cool, and so many people are stitching on it right now. So there's that. Then we have Hands Across the Sea, Florence Mary Dickinson. Sorry, I had to sneeze. This project I started along with SarahsStitchySpot and Judy, a Stitching Bunny. And this project is so colorful and so cool, and that's only one day of stitching. So I'm itching to get it back out. And another super fun piece of fabric. This one I dyed when I was at Heidi's house. It's going to make a really fun contrast for this piece. I really want to get some more work on Fruits of Plenty by Modern Folk Embroidery. Oh, this design work that he does just steals my breath every single time. This is really, really fun to work on. And I've got a really fun piece of fabric error I did for this piece. And I love this one. So yeah, one more, last but not least. And of course there's more things that I want to be stitching on, but these are just some. This project has such a fun conversion. This is Let Love Rain from Teresa Kogut. And I just really digging the fun colors here. It's very almost 60s vibe, and with this dark piece that I dyed with for it. So yeah, that's my itching to get back to. Parade. Maybe it inspired you to pull out some of your things you haven't touched in a minute. Okay, so that is everything except for books. I'm gonna quickly go over books because I have to be at choir in 6 minutes. So let's talk about books really quick. If you are not interested in hearing about what I've been listening to while I've been stitching, then I will see you back in 2 weeks for the next video. I would love it if you subscribed and join me for the next one. But if you would like to hear about books, that's what we're gonna talk about now. So I use Audible. I know a lot of people use Libby. That's a really good source as well. But I can go into my listen history and then it will remind me what I listened to. So I listened to 4 or 5 free books in the last 2 weeks. So they're not like technically free, but they were free to me because I have an Audible membership. So you have a bunch of like more than you could ever even look at free books each month to listen to. So going back to where we were last time, I was telling you that I was starting a reread of A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I was reading that with a friend. We did end up reading A Darker Shade of Magic, and then it's the next 2 in the series. It's like A Gathering of Shadows and A Conjuring of Light. And I really like book 2 and 3 especially. And then the author has recently come out with another series that takes place, it starts 7 years after the events of the first series. And that one starts with The Fragile Threads of Power, which looks like this. And that was the reason for the reread of those, because I read those like 8 years ago or something. So I wanted to refresh. And now my friend and I were starting The Fragile Threads of Power. And basically this is a fantasy, tiny bit of romance, 0% spice. And it's a fantasy book. So different magic system, and there's just all kinds of different powers based on different elements. And I really like it. I really like that book series. If you want a good read, if you're looking for something with no spice, a really fun magic system, great characters, that was a good time. Okay, I finished that other YA fantasy series that also has 0 spice, almost 0 language, I think too. There is language in the V.E. Schwab books. This was a free to me series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I have read other stuff by her, but this is YA. And it was about this girl. She's like a gargoyle, but she's also something else, and which I can't really say what she is because you don't find out for a while. She doesn't know who her parents are, but she's living with this gargoyle clan who are like protectors against demons and stuff. But then she finds out, well, is my clan actually, like, are they actually the good guys? And there's zombies in this book, demons, fallen angels, the Grim Reaper. Or this series, I read all 3 of those. And I give it like a 3 out of 5, which means that I enjoyed it, but I probably won't remember it for very much longer, if that makes sense. But it was free, so yeah. And besides that, so I did read a couple of series, so it feels like I didn't read much, but actually I just read all those series, and so that was a lot. I read one other free book. I wanted to read something spooky on Halloween, So I read The Ghost of Marlowe House by Bobby Holmes and Anna J. McIntyre. This is a very extensive series. The first one was free to me on Audible Plus, and the series is called Haunting Danielle. Basically, this woman Danielle, she can see ghosts, and she solves mysteries with like the help of the ghosts, and then she tries to help the ghost move on, is what I'm thinking the series is going to be about. And a number of them are free on Audible, but then there's also a bunch that aren't. So if you were trying to be a completionist and read the whole thing, that would be kind of difficult for you. But there are 34 in the series. I read the first one. I also give it a 3, maybe even a 2.5, just because it wasn't really spooky enough, and that's on me. You know, I was going for something pretty light, but it was like too light. And the writing wasn't like all that interesting compared to some other stuff I've read lately. So it was only okay. But I am kind of intrigued to read book 2, even though it's not a free one, so I probably won't. But maybe you can tell me if you've read this series, how she progresses. Like, does she stay in that town and all the ghosts are from that town? So, I don't know. I guess I am kind of intrigued, but with all the other things that I want to read, I don't think it's at the top of my list. So, currently then, that means what I'm reading is The Fragile Threads of Power. My brother Oliver, I was doing a reread with him of the Red Rising series before the new one comes out, and he just got book 3 from Libby, so I might start that with him as well. So anyway, that's everything I've been reading and enjoying, and along with Flosstube and reality TV. So that's my guilty pleasure, is reality TV. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for today. I really appreciate you joining me. I'm so glad that you could be here. I hope that you're doing well, you're healthy and safe, and your family as well. And I hope that you have so much stitchy time until we meet again in 2 weeks. Take care until then, and I will see you soon. Bye.